Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It was like Christmas Eve last night. I get to go out and see real people. So the last time I was on this stage, I told a story from, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s, about a young lad trying to find his identity through music. That young lad was me, in case you didn't already guess that part. And it was, if I look back on it, and it's all coming flooding back standing here now, it was more of a confessional, really, than a story. As I told the audience gathered here at Wiltons of the time when, at school, I decided a sure way to find my identity and get the girls was to model myself on Francis Rossi from Status Quo. A choice that to this day I don't know why I picked him as my aspirational idol. And that didn't work out, clearly. But I made a wrong turn and I thought, the trouble is I'm not rock enough, I'm not heavy enough. So I decided to up my game, grow my hair and become a heavy metal rock god. And rather embarrassingly, there was a period of when I went to school wearing studded leather gloves. A look that was probably more S&M than rock and roll in hindsight. And of course, that didn't work. But this seeking identity through just trying to attach myself to a male musician carried on into the world of work, where through various floppy haircuts and baggy jumpers, I tried to be Stephen Malkmus from Pavement or Kevin Shields from My Bloody Valentine. And this all came crashing down when my final musical man crush became Syd Barrett, the legendary founding member of Pink Floyd. A couple of people chuckling, they know what happened to Syd. And I decided that the way to become more like Syd Barrett wasn't by copying his sartorial elegance, but by trying to match his intake of LSD. And things fell apart there, to cut a long story short. But the story I told last time was of coming across the music of Daniel Johnston, and particularly the song Walking the Cow, which is the song I spoke about last time. And I told how by discovering Daniel's music, it sort of saved me from this death spiral of trying to pin my identity onto other musicians. And Daniel really taught me I can only be myself, so I might as well celebrate it myself and all of its utter beautiful wonkiness. And the song I'm going to talk about this time is from a completely different time in my life, quite recently, 2017 in fact. And I was thinking about this on the way here. This is really the B-side to the talk that I did last time, or the double A side if I want to level them off. Because it's sort of the story of what happened next after discovering that I just needed to celebrate who I was through the music of Daniel. And it's a song that sums me up perfectly. It's a song that can articulate who I am and how I think and what I believe in much better than I can through words. And to be honest, I want to come up with some sort of interactive business card that doesn't say anything on it, but just plays this song. Because as a socially awkward introvert, when someone comes up and says, "What do you do?" I can just hand it to them and say, "Listen to this. It's only a minute and a half. If you still want to talk to me afterwards, great." And I genuinely have this song in my will to be played at my funeral. And I'm thinking of updating my will to say that I want a headstone with no words on it, and just a button that says, "Press to listen." And because this song is such I have a real relationship with it, it's become a friend and a muse. I sort of consult with this song and it influences my work. And as Adam's already said, much of my work takes the form of experimental, strange conceptual art projects that look to do the opposite of normal, that look to find a counterpoint to common sense. And that's not just to be anarchic or trying to be weird and wacky. It's because I think the norms that we're subject to as human beings really stifle our creative freedom. So I'm interested in experimenting and seeing what happens. So as Adam says, I run Alternative Book Club, a book club where we discuss books that don't exist. For 2.5 years, I was the host of the world's first silent podcast featuring special guests that saw me broadcast 100 episodes of silence recorded face-to-face with the likes of Eddie Izzard, with the likes of Vic Reeves, and you won't believe this one, with the likes of Adam and Christian. Yeah, there you go. Great silence to listen to there. But one project that I'm most fond of and really proud of, and one that was directly influenced by this song, was a project called Inexpert. Inexpert was a social experiment disguised as a conference that I did in 2018, a year after I'd heard this song. And it was an experiment to find out what would happen if I created a conference that was the opposite of TED. So the opposite of TED Talks. Because I don't really have anything against TED, but I just see the cult of TED creates this intellectual loafing where we expect experts to stand on a red spot and in 12 minutes deliver us their 5 steps to success to solve anything. It's like fast food for the soul. It really doesn't do anything. And so I created Inexpert. I hired a 100-seater London theatre that completely sold out and invited 16 speakers to come and give talks on subjects that they were interested in but had no expertise in whatsoever. And in fact, one of the speakers is in the audience, so you can play the little game at half-time of working out which one it is. And it was a magical afternoon. It was confusing. There were tears, there were laughs. There was like, what the hell is going on? I said to the audience, my ambition is I want you to leave knowing less than you arrived with. But everything about Inexpert was Inexpert. I'd never done it before. None of the crew had done it before, the volunteers. The lady that filmed it had never operated a camera before. And in fact, she said to me, I'll be fine, just show me how to press play and it'll be good. And I said, Sophie, I need you to press record. But my favourite thing about Inexpert, over and above the talks, was that my friend Nick Parker, who's spoken on this stage actually before, did all the music live for us. Because Nick had been learning to play the trumpet for just 6 weeks. And this song was a direct influence to all of those projects, and it continues to be my muse to this day. And it was in the summer of 2017 when I came across this song. And my friend Heather said, have you ever heard this piece of music? I think you'd like it. Every time I hear it, it reminds me of you. Which was a lovely thing to hear, because the only time I remember anyone saying that before was at school, age 14, when a girl in my class said, Carly Simons, you're so vain, reminded her of me. And being a dyslexic, slightly naive kid, I thought, that's nice, she likes me, and went home and got out my little Midland Bank Griffin Savers dictionary and looked up the meaning of vain. And to be fair, considering I was looking like some pimped-up member of Status Quo, she probably had a point around that. But Heather said to me, I think you'll like this song. But the thing is, it's deleted. You cannot find it on Spotify, you cannot find it anywhere. And eventually I found someone had uploaded a version of it to YouTube. And the first time I heard it was on a packed commuter train heading into Waterloo. And I was thinking of this today when I was coming in on the same train line. It was just as we left Vauxhall, I got enough bandwidth to listen to it. And from the moment I heard the first note, I was captivated. If you was a commuter on that train, you would have seen me go from like a normal-looking commuter, whatever one of them looks like, and then suddenly look stunned. And then a big smile spreading across my face. And then tears forming in my eyes. And then just uncontrollable, corpsing laughter, like, I've just lost the plot. The world has just imploded. And I want to emphasize, this wasn't laughter at the song. Nor was it laughter with the song. There's a certain thing that happens in music that provokes that reaction in me, and I have no control over it. And it's when music that ought to be well behaved starts messing around. It's when music that's been played by an accomplished musician, the instruments say, forget you, I'm in charge of this. I'm going to take this note where you don't want it to go. And that's always got me in trouble, and it's always had this response. I remember at school, our strange music teacher, Mr. Eagles, used to play the piano in assembly, be playing some sort of turgid hymn, and then he'd accidentally hit a bum note. And I would completely collapse and melt and get ejected from assembly. And I'd be saying to the teachers, look, I cannot control this. I'm not taking a mickey out of Mr. Eagles. Did you not hear that? That was like a tear in the fabric of reality. That note shouldn't have been there. Isn't that amazing? And the same thing happened later in life at a wedding. I remember I went to a wedding in Wales, and they had a very accomplished organist. But in between the verses, she'd do these little flourishes, like Jean-Michel Jarre, which just involved lots of random notes. And again, I was there with tears, like shuddering like that. And I remember a little old lady coming up to me and putting her arm around me and going, oh, it is very moving, isn't it? She wasn't from Wales, clearly. And I didn't have the heart to say to her, look, it's not the emotion, it's just this music is crazy. And this song does that for me, because this is a piece of classical music. It's a very powerful, famous piece of classical music that builds, that is played by accomplished musicians, but it's played by an orchestra unlike any other, called the Portsmouth Sinfonia. Has anyone here heard of the Portsmouth Sinfonia before? Yeah. Well, if you haven't, you're in for a treat. Remember this moment before you heard it, because nothing will be the same afterwards. So the Portsmouth Sinfonia was formed by a group of art students in the early 1970s. Anyone could join the orchestra as long as you played an instrument you didn't know how to play. So you see the influence, yeah, on Inexpert, the influence on my work. The only other rules were show up for rehearsals, try your best, and don't play deliberately badly. And the results were phenomenal. And the more the orchestra played, the more they got known. The orchestra got bigger. More and more people joined it. Even Brian Eno joined it for a period of time to play the clarinet, because he didn't know how to play the clarinet. And they got such a following that they ended up playing the Royal Albert Hall, this crazy orchestra. But the more popular they got, the more, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I will anyway, the more pissed off the elite musical establishment got. They were saying, hey, this music is for special people. It shouldn't be treated in this way. This is intelligent music. How dare this ragtag, I don't know where this is coming from, how dare this ragtag orchestra play the hallowed walls of the Royal Albert Hall? And they did everything they could to shut down the Sinfonia. But something strange happened to the Sinfonia. The more they played, the more gigs and concerts they did, they started to lose their beautiful inexpertise. And in other words, they got too good and had to disband. Because you can't fake this thing. It's the same as you can't fake that moment of a high-status person slipping on a banana skin. It has to be spontaneous. And this piece of music is the musical equivalent of a high-status person slipping on a banana skin. So the Sinfonia disbanded. But before they disbanded, they recorded an album called Portsmouth Sinfonia Plays the Classics. And I'm so glad they did, because I would never have heard this song if they hadn't. And I quite often play this song in keynotes when I'm doing talks about creativity and stuff like that, because again, it can sum up things that are really important to me, that are really important to society, better than words can. It sums up the power of the outsider, the passionate but untrained person, how much they can disrupt the status quo, how much they can challenge the establishment, how much they can challenge the elite. So we should listen to the outsiders. It shows that there's beauty in dissonance. If we can learn to tolerate dissonance and discord and confusion and messiness, there's beauty within it. And it also teaches me and reminds me of the power of that sweet spot of inexpertise, that little sweet spot between no knowledge and becoming an expert. Malcolm Gladwell famously talks about that 10,000 hours it takes to become an expert. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the 42 hours. The 42 hours that Nick spent with a trumpet. He knew what a trumpet was. He knew which end to blow in. He knew which notes to aim for, but the rest was up for grabs. And given the state the world is in, this recording is now 52 years old. I think its time has come. I think this is an anthem for these beautifully wonky times that we find ourselves in. So if you've heard it before, you know what's coming. If you haven't, just sit back and allow the smooth, soothing sounds of the Portsmouth Sinfonia to wash around this hallowed space. Thank you. Your life will never be the same again. Thank you.